is up, weather enthusiasts? I'm your host, Pat's Path Predictor. Let's get right into the weather. Alright, so here's the situation we have for you, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about a few things that are going on. We have a few model runs that we're going to be showing. We're going to have a few graphics as well to talk about as well, particularly the Climate Prediction Center. They're coming out with a new outlook today, so that'll be very interesting to see what happens when that gets out. That'll probably be after we record this video, so we'll talk more about that tomorrow, but I do want to pull up that graphic as well as a few other things just to show you where we're at this current point in the season. So with that being said, let's go ahead and dive right into it right here. So starting off, here's what we got for you right here. This is for this week, and this is for what's coming up next week right here. So here's what we got for you starting this week on September 10th through the 16th. You have a greater than 20% probability of development out here in parts of the main development region, and as well in the Gulf region, the extreme northwestern Caribbean, and in the and around the Greater Antilles region, especially around the Bahamas and Cuba. So that's your probabilities that you are looking at right there. So ultimately, the main things we're watching out for are, once again, tropical wave development coming off the coast of Africa and development off the Central American gyre. So that's what we're looking at right there. Ensemble's been kind of spotty picking that up here and there, but we'll have to pay attention to those down the line. I know the GFS has been kind of picking up on it a little bit more and more down the road, so we're going to want to pay attention to that as well. But then you also, for next week, are looking at a greater than 40% probability of development happening in parts of the main development region, and a greater than 20% in parts of the Gulf region and Greater Antilles. So that's what we're looking at over there. If you see this greater than 40% probability of development happening over here, you're going to want to pay attention to that, especially going into mid to late September, when the tropics are more likely to start blowing up once again. So we're going to want to pay attention to that, at least according to the climatological mean we have. Once the new map comes out, we'll have a better idea as to what's going on. But ultimately, you do have that situation that the CPC is highlighting over there, and you're also looking at, once again, that Central American gyre threat over there in parts of the Gulf region, parts of the Gulf Coast, especially around Florida and those areas as well. So you're going to want to watch out for that as well. And like I've said before, we still have a lot of time left to go in this hurricane season, so you're going to want to pay attention to that. Now shifting over to the ensemble runs, we're going to go ahead and get everything sorted out and situated, because the European is highlighting at least another potential area for development in the main development region. This ensemble definitely has a lot of power associated with it, but in terms of the amount of ensembles, not particularly as high as what I would normally like to see, but I'm still going to go over it just to go, okay, what exactly are the parameters we're looking at right here, and kind of what kind of conditions could we see that could favor something like this. So that is what we have. Starting 96 hours out, you do have kind of some ensembles with a little bit of pop on it. You have 1,003 and 1,009 millibars over here, and this is out of, I believe, a 6 ensemble spread out of the 30 that the European is going to provide. So that's kind of the first thing we're looking at right here. And then going to 120 hours out, you don't really see that much of an increase in the signal, although the increase you do see is mainly in the power associated with it. You do have the European kind of signaling this area, this area over here in the Lesser Antilles. Don't worry about that. That's just noise. This is also just noise. That's noise. It's mainly this signal that you're going to want to pay attention to down the line. And then as we go ahead and go to 6 days out right here, you're definitely starting to see more of an uptick in the signal going on right here, especially southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands. You're starting to see some more starting to pop up over here that you're going to want to pay attention to. You're seeing 1,004 millibar area going for it right there. So that's something you're going to want to watch. And then going to 7 days out, you're definitely seeing that signal kind of drop off quite a bit, but then you're starting to see another signal pick up on it down the line, especially as you're noticing right here. You're noticing 992, 1,005, 1,005. You're noticing more of an increase on the ensemble spread right there that you're going to want to pay attention to as well. That's a stronger signal than what we saw previously. And as we get to 8 days out, that signal really starts to turn up, although I will say it definitely is quite a bit spread out. It's not as concentrated as what I've seen before, but the models that do something do show a lot of power associated with it. So it seems to be one of those high-risk, high-reward types of scenarios where if all the ingredients and it completely gets its act together, it's ultimately going to have a good shot at development and intensification. But it's one of those scenarios where you're going to want to wait and see. You're going to want to see how this will ultimately pan out because of that spread right there, and we're going to have to watch out for it right here. And then as we get to 9 days out, you're definitely seeing those runs starting to pick out pretty quickly right here. You're seeing a lot of ensembles right here, but not as much as you would like. But the ensembles you do see do have those that power associated with it. So it's kind of like the baseball player where you essentially hit a lot of home runs, but you also strike out a lot. So it's kind of your power hitters. You can hit 40 home runs a year, but you strike out about 120 to 130 times a year, which that is quite a lot to strike out for to get that home run, but I digress. So that's kind of what we're looking at with this right here, and I hope that kind of describes the exact scenario I'm looking at and paying attention to as well. And lastly, going to 10 days out as well, you're definitely seeing more of an ensemble spread starting to pick it up as well down the road, but it's mainly the power ensembles that take control of this, and that's something that we're going to have to pay attention to here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. And shifting over to the GFS, let's go ahead and pull up the 0Z, and we'll go ahead and go to about 4 days out once again just to show you this. GFS likes this. GFS likes this. MDR setup a lot more than the European does, which I do think is kind of interesting. Not sure if it's a false signal or not, but if it is, it is. If it's not, no harm, no foul at this current point. So we're gonna want to watch it regardless. Then as we go ahead and go to 120 hours out, right here, it's definitely quite a bit spread out right here, but you are seeing that ensemble spread starting to pick it up more and more. And it's not just all the power ensembles that are picking up on it. There's definitely a lot of ensembles that remain relatively weak at this current point that still do have something happening over there. So you're going to want to pay attention to that moving forward. Then as we get to 6 days out, what you're looking at right here is a lot more ensembles picking up on it as well, especially down here near the Cabo Verde Islands. So you're going to want to watch out for that. And you do see some power with these 1,002, not really too strong, especially compared to the European that was showing stuff in the 970s on the regular. But you're going to want to watch out for that as well. We'll go ahead and go to 180 hours out. You're definitely seeing a lot more ensembles picking up on this as well. And also another thing you're noticing too is stuff happening over here in the Central American Gyre. You're definitely starting to notice that low pressure system starting to detach over here and having the system organize and potentially strengthen down the line. And that's something that we're going to be talking about. We're going to be mainly talking about two areas today in these ensemble runs. The European didn't really show that much, especially compared to the GFS and some of these other models that are starting to pick up on it a bit more. But by and large, what you have going on right here is kind of a decent spread of the ensembles of what's going on in parts of the main development region, and you're definitely seeing a bit of a pickup in the Central American Gyre. And going to 192 hours out, that's about 8 days out, you're definitely seeing that spread more and more across parts of the MDR. However, you are looking at what's going on in the Central American Gyre, and you're definitely seeing the ensembles that do develop it are bringing a lot of power associated with it. So it looks to me like it's going to be one of those high-risk, high-reward type of situations down the line. And I will caution that because we are looking at potential development happening in the Eastern Pacific, you're going to want to see how that will ultimately pan out, which, by the way, let's go ahead and take a quick gander at that just for the sake of this video so that way we know what's going on. But here's what we have going on in the Eastern Pacific right here. So let's go ahead and talk about this. A tropical wave located about 150 miles south of the southern coast of Guatemala is producing disorganized showers and thunderstorms. Environmental conditions are favorable for development and of the system, and a tropical depression is likely to form by this week while it moves west-northwestward, roughly parallel but offshore the Mexican coast. 30% chance of development in the next 48 hours, 80% in the next 7 days. So we're going to want to watch out for that, especially those along the Central American and Mexican coasts over here. So that's kind of what we're looking at right here. And the reason we're talking about it in this instance is basically how quickly that organizes and how quickly that develops and how much to the west it moves will ultimately determine how sheared and how much outflow will kind of kick in to parts of the Bay of Campeche and the northwestern Caribbean over here. So that's kind of why we're discussing it at this current point in time, and that's just something to keep in mind and consider. So let's go ahead and go to 9 days out for you right here. You're definitely seeing more power with these ensembles. You're definitely seeing more pop with the ensembles both in the gyre and in the main development region. The GFS mainly keeps it out to sea and pushes it a bit further up to the north than what we've seen in the past, so we're going to want to watch out for that moving on. But now we'll go ahead and go to 10 days out, and 10 days out things do remain pretty interesting. You're definitely seeing a bit of power in the Central American gyre, but you're definitely seeing a lot stronger of a signal in parts of the main development region. So that's kind of your two areas of interest for watching. Right here, I will say that while it doesn't look particularly great right now, things are only going to get better and better down the line, and we could be looking at another late season peak like we did last hurricane season. So those are all factors that we're going to want to watch out for and pay attention to here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. So we'll keep a very close eye on those for you as well. Okay, so here are the models for you guys right here. We're going to start with the European, then go to the GFS, and then the other operational runs just to kind of show you what's going on, because I want to preface this section and let you guys know that a lot of the operational runs aren't really showing what the ensembles are, and we're going to want to watch and see which one ultimately wins out. Will it be a scenario where, like a lot of these scenarios, where ultimately kind of the ensembles pick up on it first and then the operational runs catch up to it afterward, or will it be a kind of another situation like that? So that's kind of what we're looking for right now. So let's go ahead and start with the European. Here's what we got for you right here. The European's really not showing that much happening across much of the Atlantic right now, across the MDR and in the Central American gyre, but that's because the European partly a part of it is because right now we're not that far out just yet. So we're going to want to pay attention to that. But ultimately, the Europeans not particularly that excited for anything happening with tropical development until I'd say about 10 days out. As you can see right here, you're seeing a system potentially starting to get its act together in the subtropical Atlantic right here. 1,005 millibar tropical storm is what the Europeans forecasting for. And you're looking at another low pressure system coming off the MDR right here off the coast of Africa in the next couple of weeks. So that's what we have for the European. Definitely showing some strengthening happening in parts of the subtropics that we're going to want to pay attention to. But ultimately, that's your situation that we have right here. The GFS, we'll go ahead and show you that right here. Here's the 0Z GFS. GFS does have something kind of interesting happening in the main development region. Does have maybe a low pressure system starting to get its act together a little bit. We're going to want to watch it. It's been going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth with that, but we're going to have to keep a very close eye on this. In terms of the Central American gyre, the GFS does still have something trying to get its act together at 0Z right here. It's kind of broad, though, and it kind of doesn't really get very organized right away. So you're going to want to keep an eye on it. But I know the 6Z is showing something a little bit more interesting right here, similar to what we saw previously going on right here. You're definitely showing more organization kind of taking place as it has a tropical storm making landfall near the Florida Panhandle right there. So you're definitely going to want to watch the gyre setup with this as well, especially with operational runs starting to pick up on it going forward. So that's what you have with the GFS so far. Here's your Canadian model. The 12Z is coming in. We don't have it all the way out, but we do have the 0Z all the way out. So we can kind of give you an idea as to what's going on. And then going to 5 days out, you do see maybe a couple low pressure systems in the MDR, but not too much going on right there. Again, going to be a scenario where we're going to want to watch to see if the ensembles keep building off of it and have the operationals catch up to it, or kind of a situation where that doesn't quite happen. We're not 100% sure at this current point in time. 12Z is showing something potentially happening in the MDR, but that's what we have for the Canadian, and that's 144 hours out. Last one we'll go ahead and show you is the Icon. Icon's pretty interesting. The Icon's actually all the way out at 12Z, so we can go ahead and pull this up. The Icon does have a tropical wave coming off the coast of Africa in the next couple of days, and it shows maybe something happening right here. The Icon actually does want tropical development to take place in the MDR. 1006 millibar tropical depression that does start to get its act together, so we're definitely seeing some more operational model support in the long run across parts of the Atlantic, but ultimately we're still going to be relatively quiet for, I'd say, the next few days at least, maybe the next week or so. But that's something you're going to want to watch out for. And just because it's quiet right now doesn't mean it's going to be quiet forever, and things are going to start ramping up very shortly. And we'll go ahead and show you that in just a little bit. As we look at it, we'll go ahead and now talk about some conditions that I want you guys to pay attention to moving forward. Starting off right here, here are your sea surface temperatures. Let's go ahead and take a quick gander at these. Your sea surface temperatures across the Atlantic, less of a factor, more of a constant. That's the main thing we're looking at this point. We're looking at 28 degrees Celsius at least across the tropics and in the subtropics as well. Looking at 29 degrees Celsius as you get towards the western Atlantic. But the area I'm really concerned about is potential development off the Central American gyre. And the reason I am is partly because you have water temperatures of 30 plus degrees Celsius, which is about 86 degrees Fahrenheit for those of you living in the United States and the territories that don't use the metric system. So that's something you need to consider as well. So ultimately, that's the first thing I am worried about. Another thing I'm worried about is the ocean heat content. OHC continues to be very concerning across much of the Atlantic. We'll go ahead and F5 this and get to the most recent chart right here. This is the OHC. OHC in the Northwestern Caribbean is well over 175 at that point. That is very conducive for explosive intensification given the right conditions. Now, I'm not saying that anything's going to blow up right away. Oh my goodness, we're looking at something happening right away. No, that's not what I'm trying to say. But what I am saying is we have a scenario in which that if something does start to get its act together, and as long as there's a decent wind shear and plenty of moisture, things could start to go off pretty quickly. It's a kind of a powder keg, pretty much. You're kind of smoking in the arsenal. One spark will lead to the whole thing going off, and that's one thing we're going to want to watch. Lastly, we'll go ahead and show you the wind shear and the dry air. Here is your wind shear map for you right here, mainly paying attention to the western Atlantic, at least according to the European. You do have this trough that starts to dive into parts of the Gulf region right here, but you do have a ridge that's building up kind of behind that a little bit that you're going to want to pay attention to. Then as we get to about, I'd say, 8 days out, you do have that trough digging even deeper into the Gulf region right here. But you're going to want to watch out for this, because if we see something originate in the Caribbean, initially, things could be a bit more favorable with its organization and the outflow breathing into it, but if the wind shear stays on that pattern and holds, it's not going to be a very fun ride for whatever tries to develop, at least until we get to the long-run forecast where the wind shear finally does start to weaken in that region. So you're going to want to keep a very close eye on that as well. Lastly, very quickly, we'll go ahead and show you the moisture component to all of this. Actually, that's not what I'm looking for. Here's the moisture. Moisture component to all of this is mainly kind of mixed, honestly. You do see some dry air in the MDR, but more moisture from these waves are coming out to replenish that. And then you have stuff potentially happening in parts of the Gulf region. You have a lot more mixable dry air over there, so dry air is not going to be too big of an issue either. So those are things that we're going to want to watch, at least until the very end when dry air becomes a bit of a problem. But those are things we're going to want to watch out for, and those are things we'll continue to keep you updated here on the Pat's Path Predictor channel. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you are new. The goal, as always, is to get more people engaged with weather. If you'd like to help us out, hang out, or ask us some questions, feel free to join the Storms United Discord server. The link to that will be in the end screen. We'd be really happy if you guys came on and hung out with us. And with that being said, have a wonderful day, guys. Stay safe.